get done. You can see Kellen desperately trying to sacrifice his life in hopes of saving Duck Dom, or at least buying some time as one final shot, and that's going to be an extra kill to Root. So not really reading the map, it looks like, and seeing the rotation coming in. The bottom river is totally owned right now by Live Sandbox, so kind of caught with their pants down. And yes, they're going to get some other objectives, but
yeah,
still extra kills in the bottom lane turret should go the way of Live Sandbox.
Definitely the better trade, 100% for Live Sandbox, but at least Nongshim is able to find value elsewhere on the map. Bay gets a turret plate. You can see the Herald's going to trade down this whole turret.
Yeah, they're going to get first blood turret here, actually.
Yep. So that's actually a huge deal. I still think that the Live Sandbox trade was slightly better. But, I mean, you have Rift Herald, and you just immediately pivot away from the bot lane. You know that's a lost cause. Gets a second charge as well. And this is Nongshim on the map. They're just always out-rotating their opponents and trying to trade better. This is a bad spot to be.
Not again. They're going to get caught here underneath their turret, as that's going to be another kill onto the Jhin.
Might be more because his turret's dead.
Yeah, Kellen's just going to die too. He's going to try to flash and make it over to Bay, but that was really desperate. He was never getting out there, and now, after a fantastic game one, he's just been bullied in this game, 0-5, whereas the enemy Samira has 5 of those kills. As now they're looking to trade here onto Rich. Doesn't look like he, he realized this was coming. He was desperately trying to make something happen on the top side of the map and put on pressure, but just announced to him getting killed.
What a disaster of a game, unfortunately, for Nongshim. I mean, it started off with the mid lane going terribly for Bay, and they overextended bot, and it feels like Kellen is almost overestimating what Rel's attract and repel stun is capable of doing. Like, when you see some of these moves where he's like, okay, we're going to make some distance here so we get the attract and repel stun, he gets a 2-man stun off, but it's not going to save him. It's not going to save Duck Dom either. The turret's low, and it feels like should have just been a faster retreat here. You never want to just give up a turret, but they've already taken some other objectives on the map. Sometimes it's just time to go. Like, that stun is not going to save you in every situation. It feels like he's so reliant on it. He's 0-5-3 in this game right now, unfortunately. Just feels like he's feeling like this Rel pick is going to make him invulnerable when he's got that attract and repel link to set up these stuns, but he just keeps dying every time he tries to turn those fights with it.
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, a macro positioning error. Like, why are they still under the turret for this long? It should have kind of been sacrificed at this point, you know? If you're getting just absolutely shreked in the bottom lane, you got to try to mix things up and go for a different lane. As I say that, though, they are going to be looking for a dive onto Summit as the Ragnarok comes in here. Bay taking a lot of damage early on. Do they have the damage to burst through Ornn? Yes, they do. So a nice little trade back from the side of Nongshim. They'll be able to pick up a kill onto Summit down on the bottom side.
They push the wave to the top lane, though, so it's not just going to be free. They get not only that top pressure onto this turret, may even go down here, as I think it will with the minion wave. They're also going to get the Rift Herald, so Bay stays in bot, and it's just turrets traded here across the board, but again, that Rift Herald could definitely open up this map, especially if they can get this mid-turret finally for Fate. He's going to have so much more room to work with the Zoe. And we only really got to see him pop off once in the previous game when he had that zone around the Drake.
Oh, no.
This is a bit
oh, no. Not again. He's trying to dash away with the Gale Force. Nearly, just barely, it looks like, able to get away here as the Ignite coming out from the Alistair and the red buff from the Graves, just barely not enough to chip him down. But again, you got to be careful. You got to know what Alistair is capable of, especially from ahead.
Yeah.
And so far, Effort is showing that he's angry with the way Game 1 went, and he's looking to try to prove himself this time around.
I mean, Effort's played through a lot of different Alistair metas. This is most picked in Kespa Cup by a large margin. So it does need to be shown a lot of respect because the Alistair's got really strong engage. Can set up a lot of these fights, especially when you have your Rift Herald pushing through. Now that mid turret is gone, and Fate can set up so much more poke damage. I mean, look at what he's capable of doing here, even with just one minion wave. Look at the vision control they're taking away from Nongshim now. Suddenly, Zoe looks like an insanely powerful pick, given the situation.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a little bit of extra mobility here with that pickup too.
Oh, Nongshim trying to get in here and force it with the Meganar. Can they try to burst down this Ornn before he gets anything done? Does get the triple knockup, does the Ornn, but he does go down. Rich rather trying to boop some heads into the wall, but Rich is going to go down, and now there's not much of a front line to the side of Nongshim as, oh man, Duckdom just immediately gets one tapped on the backside.
He's like, wait, I forgot about you?
Yeah, oh, not quite. Well, here comes effort.
Yeah.
He's got those Moby boots. Knows he's been spotted, and so Peanut will be able to get away, but Nongshim just desperately trying to force that fight, and they get punished for it.
This is actually just, I mean, this game is over. Pretty much. Like, there's 6K up, 12 kills up, but they have the, the only thing that Nongshim really had going for them was that they got those turrets early and traded some of the objectives back to where it wasn't too bad for them. But this is when Fate's like, okay, look at the vision control I have over the map. And he just continually tosses in damage. You can see the knockup is really good as well. Here coming out from Ornn, and Root is actually just cleaning up house here on the bot side, and Fate goes ahead and takes out Duckdub on the edge. Looks like forgets that Peanut's there for just a second. Probably, actually, if he had realized earlier, would have guaranteed that kill. He doesn't get it in the end, but Zoe's value is insanely high here. It's a completely different build too. The Horizon focus just going for heal deny, the Oblivion Orb coming out, and I think it's just understanding that you don't need to do max range damage in this fight. You don't need the Hail Mary, passes to win here. You're actually just going to be doing damage for the rest of this game no matter what, because you're in such control over the map that you can just kind of spam damage out because you have such a good front line to support you as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, the force of the fight there was pretty interesting. I mean, Duckdown was just full health, full mana on the backside. I don't even think he shot one shot in that fight, and then eventually just got one shot by the Zoe. So now we're kind of trading on the map once again. It looks like, Bay had to flash away from the wraparound there from Effort, and actually this push in the bottom lane works out better for the side of Nongshim, at least for now. So I suppose a decent response, just looking for other objectives on the map while the enemy is pushing the top lane.
Seen this movie before, though. Kellen is like, oh, I'm looking for a stun over here with my turret at 5% health. Probably needs to back away. Does back away this time. I thought I was having deja vu for a second there, but thankfully not the case. Although, looking for some vision control and finds himself in a awkward spot for a moment, but he's alright. But yeah, I mean, as you say, Nongshim again getting some better trades, and Rich is just off-laning, side-laning, I guess. Off-lane is what we called it in Heroes of the Storm when he was just off by himself, getting a ton of experience for the team. Very different scenario here, but still, he's great at it, at side-laning, and does get some extra pressure done. And unfortunately, the Sandbox don't have the advantage yet, or the comp that has any sort of dive to just press the go button and push a fight on that top inhibitor turret. It's better to just wait for the next objective, control vision there, and use Zoe to chip everybody away before the fight even starts.
Yeah, I mean, we might have a little bit of a lull state in this game. It's not much happening on the map, right? As you mentioned, it's not like Lift Sandbox can just like dive turrets at this point, but they're going to be waiting for either Nongshim to make a mistake where they get clawed out and they can get a couple of kills into Baron or maybe an inhibitor. Or they're just kind of going to be waiting for Cloud Drakes and look for the Cloud Soul and then take it in the later stages of the game. I mean, they are so massively stacked right now as Peanut is seemingly alone, but actually he does have Kellen coming in, Duckdom trying to help out, Teleport coming in from Bay, but with the flash coming out, okay, Bay is actually going for this. He is going to use that Alistar ultimate and just,
just jumping the gun a little bit
yeah,
there. I mean, the thing is, like, they were cut in half, Nongshim but they still were able to reconsolidate with that teleport coming in from Bay, and the idea was there, but unfortunately the execution a little bit weak.
Yeah, now they're just getting burst down underneath the turrets. The Samira goes in, and you can see that Rich is desperate to get a flank and actually kills the Zoe somehow. So nicely done, I suppose, but he is a bit alone as everybody else in his backline is just being shred to pieces here as he'll just have to slink away, looking to try to trade a little bit with the Croco, but they're just going to back away. They get that inner turret there, and they're just going to go ahead and back. Yeah. They've got a nice lead in this one. They don't want to force anything at this point in time.
Look at the angle that you see the teleport come in from Bay. You talked about the Ornn ultimate that he tries to utilize here. And Summit is off on the edge. He goes in. He's actually trying to set up for this. And it's actually, he gets caught. I thought he was able to steal there, but he actually doesn't even get the steal. So, never mind on that one. Just totally before he can even do anything.
Yeah, he took the Alistar ultimate, so he's like, okay, I guess I can just survive forever in this fight. But the second the Ornn flashes, the fight is done. Yeah. Like, you're not gonna jump in there alone from behind, and you know, like I don't get what he was trying to do. Really.
I was looking elsewhere in the fight. I thought he stole the Ornn ultimate, but he didn't. And like, if he stole the Ornn ultimate, it's still it's a tough call, but maybe he could turn that around. He's got a bit of a reputation recently for engaging at a pretty aggressive angle.
Well, Nongshim, the one good thing about them is that, you know, they're not just going to sit back and die. They will go down fighting. And that's exactly what they're trying to do here. They want to go for the fight. They're looking for the Ornn again. They're going to deny that ultimate coming in here, but do they have the damage as Root is going to get another kill and immediately just shreds that front line down. Doesn't really look like Nongshim have a chance in this one at all, as the Cloud Drake going to be taken down on the back of those 2 kills, or rather 3 kills, and now Live Sandbox can kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah, and I think a Baron play is in order with the respawn timers as they are. Going to control vision around the top side of the pit first, and watch Fate in this fight too. He just shoots Kellen. Kellen's half health just from one orb, or one Q connecting there, base the next target, and like, he actually itemized into Leandri's, but you wouldn't believe it based on the burst damage you're seeing from this champion right now. He's got a needlessly large rod completed as well. Like, he might even, I mean, he won't, but he could build into a death cap at this point. I mean, why not? Just one-shot people. Look at the gold.
He's got Magi stacking at the same time, like, you know, just doing Zoe things, trying to imitate Showmaker as best as possible. Showmaker definitely one of those guys to go second item Magi's very, very quickly in a lot of their games. Very easy when you're on Dalmon, I suppose.
He just
and Canyon just kind of 1v9s.
Just outright buys a Horizon focus. He's like, well, I guess we'll just just take that. Yeah. You know, I've got a lot of gold. 2,500 gold up, I think the difference was between the mid laners in terms of total gold this game, and that's about the cost, nearly the cost of Horizon Focus right there. Just going to put that in his pocket, and now the long-range damage is even more frustrating to deal with, plus the additional vision they're going to have. They've got Baron buff, so the side laning that you're seeing right now for Root is insanely powerful and potent. There's just no way for Nongshim to try to cut through this jungle here, especially without vision control. To stop this, so this should just be a free inhibitor, and Nongshim's like pushing mid indecisively and now backing to try to hope to defend the base.
Peanut's like, just wait up, guys. I'm gonna take this inner turret. Don't worry, I'll be there eventually. As the Ornn ultimate gonna knock up Kellen as he just disappears again. And man, there are just so many super fed members on the side of Live Sandbox at this point in time. Rich trying to get it done. The Silas goes 100-0 in about 0.3 seconds. As that's going to be a double kill over to the side of Root. And again, like I said, you know, Nongshim at least make it fun. They're not going to go down without a fight. But at the end of the day, they did die 28 times. And that is going to be the win, going to the side of Live Sandbox, as they will tie up the series.
Yeah, very much a different Zoe game here for Fate. It was a highlight reel for him throughout the entirety of that game. And when you have an advantage like that, I mean, it's really easy to make Zoe look god tier. When you have that vision control, you have that ability to poke super hard in the fights that, unfortunately, Nongshim just can't dictate the pace of. And I have to say, pretty disappointing game for Kellen on the Rel. Way overextended, which is sad because he had such a fantastic game just moments ago on the Thresh. But swapping over to the Rel, playing hyper aggressive, trying to rely on those attract and repel stuns to set up some big fights defensively, just simply did not work out for him. Maybe even just misjudging this early on in a champion's life. Sometimes you misjudge the power level of a champion like Rel, where you feel like, okay, we're under turret. If I stun, we win this fight no matter what. But they just got too far behind. And we also saw Bay with some pretty crazy aggressive plays after being behind. That teleport that we saw, that, you know, where I thought he actually stole the Ornn ultimate, but he actually stole the Alistar ult. It's just a little bit too much, right? And that's, we've seen so many teleports out of this guy that have gone awry, unfortunately. And hopefully he doesn't build up too much of a reputation as being the flanker who is flanking himself.
Yeah, I got to be careful about building up that reputation. You could see that he was pretty hurt. It looked like after that one, I thought, you know, he seemed pretty emotional after that game, and that's a rough one. You know, you got spanked in lane, you got out-rotated, out-roamed, and then in the team fights, you know, you weren't really able to amount to much, even though you were trying your best. So at the end of the day, you know, one to try to forget, I suppose, for some of those members on the side of Nongshim. But shout out to Liv Sandbox. I feel like Fate, to me, he's my Pog, and he had a really amazing game on the Zoe to get everything rolling in that one.
He certainly did. I mean, and he just kept snowballing things forward, and unfortunately there was just no way back into this. I mean, he leads the damage. If you look at the post-game stats, he leads the damage on the server, 20.1k, nearly tripling the damage that we saw from Silas, unfortunately. Bay having a really tough time in the laning phase. His rotations, unfortunately, were obviously late because of it. And it felt like things really started to go wrong in this game for Nongshim. With that first roam bottom that we saw, where unfortunately Peanut either just didn't have vision or didn't react quickly enough, and that bot lane just snowballed away from them.
Yeah, definitely one where I think they can kind of just, you know, erase that from their memory, say, okay, we've learned our lesson, we're a much better team than this. They've already kind of proven that they have a much higher ceiling than what we saw there. So we'll see if they can come back and make Game 3 competitive, but we'll have to wait until after this break. Don't go anywhere.
The housing's loose again. What did you do to this thing?
You'll have it fixed by Mudtown. With currents and wind conditions, we can be there in 3 days. The mist should be leagues from here.
Well, it saved us a trip.
Senna?
Hey, we don't run from darkness.
We light the way.
You don't belong here.
I have crossed through death and ruination to get back to her. Return, my queen.
You will destroy this world.
She is my world.
We have to go back for her.
Senna? We can't defeat him alone.
We're back after Leaf Sandbox versus Nongshim Red Force game number 2. Let's take a look at the draft first. We saw another Gnar, and we had Rel on the Rift again. So, undefeated. Actually, Graves was a friend of Gnar, but this time around, Graves managed to pick up a win of the split, whereas Gnar kept extending his losing streak of the spring split. It was really impressive to see the rune choices coming out from the Leaf Sandbox players. They were looking for some burst damage, but at the same time, Nongshim Red Force was not able to find a meaningful engage with this champion called Rel. Nongshim Red Force locked in Rel in the very early phase of the pick and ban phase. And the partner for Rel was Jhin. Zoe was able to actually jump around the opponent during this game number 2. Leaf Sandbox was having a huge edge over Nongshim Red Force in the beginning of the game, so let's take a look at how they managed to kind of snowball in this early game. So red side spotted Graves with their ward over there. And Zoe also placed the ward in the Raptor camp in the earlier phase, so they knew where Peanut was. So with that Scryer's Bloom, they also saw the Smite was recently used on the Grump camp. So actually Olaf was aware that he was too late for this Scuttle competition because he was going full camp clear. So Peanut was camping that bottom lane for 100 years, but he was not able to score any kills or force any summoner spells. So in the end, Kuroko was able to double Scuttle, whereas Peanut just had to stay in that brush forever and just base without any meaningful point. We can also see this actually snowballed from that mid lane priority that Fate had. He was able to shove in the wave and place a ward to spot the opponent jungler or get any kind of clues where he was. And later on, this kind of effect led to the bottom turret dive and everything. Then let's take a look at the bottom lane play we just mentioned earlier. Leaf Sandbox actually was really confident, so they were trying to open fight because Graves was in a bit of a closer proximity. And I think we can just conclude this fight as a mid lane difference. Zoe was rotating first because Nongshim players knew Zoe was faster. They had to just back. Zoe was going super aggressively over here. He had full spell and also the W spell Ghost. He sidestepped the Umbrella stun with his flash, and he kept going in to pick up kills. Silas already used his teleport to go back to his lane earlier in this highlight, so there was no way for him to join this fight earlier than Zoe. So we can conclude that Leaf Sandbox was really smart with their draft, and also the execution in-game was also on point. As we all mentioned, Fate was popping off on the Rift on Zoe for 2 games in a row, so let's check out whether he secured this POG, and the answer is yes. Well, some people might say Samira also deserves a POG, but before Samira was super fed and was able to pick up so many kills, it was Fate that allowed this much of a lead for Leaf Sandbox to pick up. Even though he lost on Zoe in game number 1, he was confident to pick it again. And he was actually doing a fantastic work in game number 1 as well. And we could see the reason why he was sticking to this pick for 2 games in a row.
보통 용을 줄 만한 상황인데도 우린 싸울 거야 하고 이렇게
And
싸우는 거 보니까
we could see that Leaf's sandbox was super aggressive over here because they could just like not contest for the strike and just open fights, but they were looking for both neutral objective and also the kills. And as we mentioned, Samira managed to pick up a vote here as well, but 8 votes were over to Fate, who was doing a fantastic work on Zoe. So we have a very close series between Nongshim Red Forest and Leaf Sandbox, so let's move on to the decider game of the series.
Thank you very much, Ji-sun, once again for the wonderful translation there. This time around, it looks like Fate does pick up the player of the game, and well earned at that. A fantastic roam and a great Fate bait mate coming down into the bottom side and picking up a double kill for his team and really getting the ball rolling. So we'll see if Bay can kind of screw his head back on and try to get over that game, because Fate was certainly looking good, and we'll see how Game 3 goes, Wolf.
Yeah, as we head into draft, I mean, the adaptations in draft were pretty good on the side of Live Sandbox, you know, taking the Aphelios away from Duck Dom, still prioritizing the Zoe, but drafting a composition that works better for it. And, you know, the Graves pick ended up working out really well for them. We were a little bit concerned about it when we saw it in the draft. We thought maybe perhaps they would get really just out-controlled by Peanut, but he was able to rotate faster because of the Zoe pick, and now you can see just how terrifying Fate can be. You know, you hyped him up even more than me leading into this series, and he absolutely carried that last game, and we'll see what he ends up with this time, as the Sandbox will be on red side, so they might just take it in that first rotation again. You can't really ban Zoe as a target ban in this meta. On blue side, it just doesn't work out that way, so they're always going to have that opportunity to prioritize it in first rotation, unless, you know, Bay first picks it here, which was never going to happen.
Well, looks like Peanut wants to grab the Olaf right from the get-go. You'll remember Game 1, he picked the Nidalee, knowing the Olaf is available, and said, yes, okay, I'm okay to go into that matchup. We have Nidalee available again, and Nidalee generally okay to go into the Olaf matchup, so maybe we'll see the reverse of Game 1. Maybe Krako hops onto that one and shows us a bit of that. Maybe he just goes back onto the Graves and says, okay, well,
yeah,
had a good game in Game 2. Maybe I can just run it back.
And that is what he's going to go for here with this Graves. It looks like it's being hovered at the moment. Well, as I see it, it is Zoe. I mean, they can still pick it here. It's going to take some extra time to think about that one. I feel like playing around Nidalee really requires your mid laner to be just on fire, right? Needs to be owning the matchup, needs to be able to set up for some stuns oftentimes. You know, we see Yone paired with Nidalee a lot for that reason, but you know, right now, maybe just playing a safer jungler pick that allows you to be more, I guess, solo, so to speak. You could make your own decisions. You're not relying on the mid laner as much. Makes a lot of sense because Bay has underperformed a little bit, especially in that second game. As we see the Jhin come through with the Zoe, so leaving the jungle a little bit for flex. Tristana mid is something that we've been hearing a lot of rumors of. A lot recently. I've been hearing a lot of players talking about that it's very highly likely to come back at some point, but does not actually end up getting locked in here. They'll take the Syndra instead, which is a pretty safe pick for Bay. Hard to go wrong with the Syndra, you know, one of his most played champions.
Yeah, I mean, the Syndra's nice in the matchup. You can control the lane really well. Once you get a couple items, you know, even Lost Chapter, you can begin to put on some nice pressure with your pushing. And you've always got a nice lineup for your Scout of the Week with the Zoe. I always mention this against Zoe. You know, you just know where she's going to portal jump back to, so you can always line up those, you know, non-target CCs a little bit easier. And generally, Syndra just going to be good into that one. And so we do finally see the Graves, actually. It does come in here as the third pick. It looks like they wanted to prioritize the Zoe and the Jhin picks first for Root and Fate.
Yeah.
But they do end up with a pick anyway.
I think they also wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be something hyper-aggressive in the mid lane, because that can make it tougher to play Graves. Like if we did end up seeing later on, potentially like an Aurelia mid-blind or something like the Yone, which again hasn't been really seen paired with the Olaf, but if it was going to be something like that, you wouldn't necessarily want to pick the Graves into that, especially with Zoe as your mid laner. So just waiting that out, seeing it's the safe Syndra, seeing that Graves can play into that. Camille gets banned here. Aatrox obviously the target ban against Rich for the top lane, but the Camille ban does kind of feel like a nod towards that top Gnar pick.
Oh god, not again. How many times does Gnar have to lose before we see it lose priority in the LCK? This is always this game we play. As Ornn is going to be taken down. So, you know, again, there's some bans there where it's like, are we just going to see Gnar again?
Well, I wonder
out of Rich.
I wonder if the Gnar gets picked, if you save the top pick for flex. And I think the Galio pick is pretty safe against, especially the Alistar, but against any sort of aggressive top pick. Like, let's say Rich takes the Renekton here, which is unlikely, but it's still possible. The Galio pick's pretty safe against that. Now you get to actually answer the top pick of Rich in your final flex pick, counter pick.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, so this actually works out a lot better. We'll see finally Duck Dom's Ezreal. I actually thought he was the best Ezreal we saw in Kespa Cup, so glad to see that make a reappearance here in the LCK with all the ADs we have banned.
Yeah, he's an exciting AD carry player because his two biggest champions are Aphelios and Ezreal, so like definitely plays outside of the meta, and that's pretty cool to see. Not that Aphelios is totally outside of the meta, but Ezreal kind of is. As Gnar gets locked in again,
I think this is Renekton, man.
You know?
I think you've got to pick the Renekton into this. It's the only aggressive top laner left, I feel, in this meta that you could pick to be aggressive, make that your strong side. And they look to the Jace instead, and I mean I think it's still solid, but it doesn't give you that tanky front line. It's going to help keep Zoe alive. But as we've seen with Zoe in the past, it's not always about front line that makes her valuable. It's about controlling the vision, having that ward control, and honestly just being ahead makes it so much easier. You get that first mid turret. I sound like a broken record for that, but that is kind of oftentimes where Zoe gets to play the game outside of lane. And I really thought with Summit's priority for Renekton in the past that this was just going to be a perfect pick here. It's tough into the Alistar, no doubt, and into the Ezreal as well, but we'll see what he can get done against this Gnar in the top lane. Already has been kind of a struggle pick into the Jace so far today, and yeah, I don't know. How many times is he going to lose? That's the question you asked earlier, and might find out. But this is already, I mean, I have to say, too, this has already been a bad day for Nongshim. You want to make a statement in this series. You do not want to go to a third game again, and maybe a bit of hubris with that Rel pick in game 2, but this is already not where you want to be. You don't want to take this 2-1, and if you lose this game, this team is dropping down in everybody's power rankings right now, so this is an extremely important game to win for Nongshim right now.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not too impressed by the draft. I mean, it's Gnar where it's like, okay, I understand. It seems to be working in scrims, but it's not working so far in the LCK. And you just look on the side, they flex the Jace instead of Renekton. They have insane amounts of poke and range in their lineup. It's like, if they get ahead and they get 1-2 items, I'm not really sure what the side of Nongshim Red Force will be able to do. But let's take a look, guys. We're going to jump into game number 3 as we do move on to the Rift once again. And let's see who is going to take the cake here in our first series of the day.
Ezreal is super mobile, obviously going to have a great time dodging skill shots and putting out consistent damage into something like the Renekton. Because it's going to be hard for Renekton to get on top of him, right? So, and eventually he W's you and just does tons of damage as he kind of like laughs and jumps away with his E. But I do think that for the side of Nongshim, as you said, like the answer to the poke, it feels like it's going to have to be the Alistar. It's going to have to be Kellen hard engaging and roaming a lot. So if they fall behind early and this map opens up, like I don't know if there is a path back into this game just by the nature of the range and the poke that Live Sandbox have on their side, and the lack of a really good hard engage for Nongshim counter-wise.
Yeah, you know, they have some options, but I think that Live Sandbox just have insane range. Like, they have so many options to keep Nongshim at bay. And, you know, speaking of bay, he's on the Syndra. The Syndra pretty nice if you're up against some melee, some guys that you can keep at range, that you can kind of bully a little bit with your priority, with some of your poke, but he's not really going up against that kind of comp here. So, again, there's pressure on him to perform on the Syndra against a lot of really mobile, ranged champions. It's not going to be easy for him to be outputting a lot of that damage. So
Yeah.
I think that Nongshim have to get ahead, and if they don't, this might just be doomed in the mid game.
Yeah,
as I think they'll run out of options.
And like in this situation too, like when you think about how Kellen often is probably going to have to be the engage. Rich. Ouch, hurts. But yeah, when you think about Alistair being the kind of main initiation point, and sometimes you could set that up into a big Sky of the Week, the Galio, I feel like, makes it so easy to counter that. You can taunt the Alistair if the Alistair comes in too aggressively, can't punch him away. Like, there's so many ways for the Galio pick to be great here. And I think the Galio pick would have been safe against a very aggressive top laner as well, like the Renekton. Again, hasn't really been seen outside of a few stray bans in the LCK, but it's always looming. It's still a very strong pick, even though it hasn't been prioritized as much. So well, the Galio pick was really nice into that last rotation, Jace. Super safe, so great against everything that was really left open. Because even if Rich picks the Gnar here, it's still strong against the Alistair they knew was going to be one of their best engage tools. So really great choice for effort.
Yeah, don't mind it at all, for sure. Pretty interesting buy patterns here. We have the early back. You could call it a cheater recall, if you will. Root and Effort able to push in the bottom lane really fast, and he backs and picks up a cull. So Root trying to gain an early lead in that way. Just wants to farm it out down on the bottom side. The top lane, I mean, Summit, obviously very well versed in Jace, and, you know, they banned out some counters to the Gnar, but you can't ban them all out. And again, if the Gnar falls in this game, I'm really going to be left scratching my head as to why there's just so much massive priority on this pick. I mean, we're looking at 0 and 5 already. You know, how many losses? Again, we'll have to wait and see. Or maybe, you know, can Rich actually make it work this time around?
And I've watched a decent amount of LPL leading up to this and seen a lot of the Gnar picks there, and honestly I feel like the difference from what I've seen, and I didn't end up watching yesterday because I was commentating, obviously I'll catch up on those VODs later, but it feels like oftentimes he just ends up baiting people, and you see the jungle come up and there's a lot of really high value trades in the top lane for Gnar, because it feels like sometimes he can trick you into thinking you're going to win that trade, then he turns on you, he gets the Mega Gnar. There's a lot of ways where he just ends up getting ahead because of the jungle rotations, but unfortunately in the LCK that just simply hasn't been happening. He's been getting bullied, he's been solo killed a lot, and I don't know. I don't have faith yet.
being, yeah, you know, there hasn't been too much to give us faith, at least in the LCK. So Kraka comes in, steals a couple, but he's down a level actually, so gonna have to try to get this third Scuttle Crab here on the map. Summit just gonna push in this lane, but take a look at the CS difference. Probably gonna be about 15, maybe 10, once he does pick up that whole wave. As Kraka gonna go for a pretty early clear onto this Cloud Drake. We know it's not gonna be a Cloud Soul because, of course, this starting off in a Cloud Drake, so he wants to get it stacking very early, but he's down a level on Peanut. He's lost a ton of health already. And they're just trying to use their priority on the bottom side. As Effort gonna have to flash away here. It looks like they're just gonna try to zoom their way out of this fight, as they just wanted to pick up the Drake and back away, and they are successful in that.
It's actually a pretty cool little threat in there by Effort as well. And then he just flashes out. It's a huge trade to lose your flash like that, but actually bought them just the time they needed. So Root gets extremely low here. Peanut's not just gonna let this go. Oh, feels bad, man. Oh.
Yeah. If only that axe was a little bit thicker. Needs an upgrade on that one.
Yeah, or a little bit faster, you know, maybe if his arm was just a little bit stronger.
Olaf needs to hit the gym.
Not the quarterback
But,
Olaf skin, you know.
Yeah. Nice little stun here on the Fate. Doesn't amount to too much. Peanut just helping push the lane as you do. Krako comes in supporting his mid laner as well. And we've actually had less action in this game compared to the other two games in the early stages of the game, at least. Just a lot of trading in the lanes. Obviously, the Jace is going to get ahead in this lane. But outside of that, pretty even across the board.
Yeah. I mean, this is Nongshim doing pretty well, all things considered, with this Gnar pick. I mean, it could be much worse, and it looked like it was going to be much worse when you were looking at the CS earlier. Well, these waves just keep getting pushed in. He's freezing it a little bit here to try to deny some, but eventually it's going to push through. Rich is going to be fine. Something about Rich, too, though, you know, across his kind of unique picks he's had, from the top Gragas that he played tank, to the I'm thinking of Gragas and Gangplank. Sorry, that was like what's the other G champion that he played in the top lane? Yeah, the Gangplank he had.
Yeah.
He had a few of those like nuggery power spikes where, you know, it starts off really bad, gets dove, a lot of priority onto him, but he just is able to survive, stay even in CS, start, you know, lane swapping and finding other objectives on the map for his team. And sometimes he does kind of take the hit in the matchup for his team in that top lane. This could be another one of those scenarios where he does end up allowing his team to get other objectives if there is too much attention to this topside Gnar on the side of Live Sandbox. Krako going to push up here to look for something, and then as Rich plays safe, he's going to look for this Rift Herald.
He's dead. Yeah, just like that. First blood gonna go the way of Summit. Keep in mind, he also tried to flash away from that one, so essentially just trying desperately to not get blasted, but eventually just kind of flashes into it anyway. That top lane, you know, he can get bullied, he can take away any pressure, but if you're getting just straight up solo killed underneath your turret, generally not a good look, and it leaves you wondering, you know, why again?
Yeah.
Why is there so much priority when the Jace is available and you're playing against Summit?
I mean, look at just the auto attacks coming through here for Summit, just straight up. He W's and then he just goes right for the accelerated shock blast there, and doesn't even. I think he probably would have killed him without the acceleration, but gets it just for good measure. Very much a overextension there for Rich, unfortunately. Needed to show a little bit more respect when those auto attacks were coming through, but you live and you learn, I suppose, or you die and you learn in this case. 30 CS down now, and they got the Rift Herald with it, pairing there, the combo, so, you know, can't really make an argument for a big macro trade on the map for Nongshim. Down a Drake as well.
Mm-hmm. And this is kind of what happens too, you know, you give up priority in that top side, and I mean, we haven't seen the junglers really focus on helping out this lane either, so it's just Summit getting free pushes into the turret. He's getting free great trades as a Jace will, and this just opens up so much space for Krako to come in and say, hey, free Rift Herald, you know, like, just all this stuff free, and now the Jace is 1,000 gold ahead. Just loving his life right now. Krako easily able to use this priority in top and mid to just waltz on into the enemy jungle. We're going to have a nice rotation up to the top side. And here we go. Lateral damage coming out, and this is this poke already coming out here in this game. Effort taking a lot of aggro under that turret a little bit too early, I would say. But the teleport comes in either way from Bay, and that is going to help out try to survive for now. But Live Sandbox are not done with this. Trying to come on in. They still have the Rift Herald. They would still love to get some of those plate gold onto their carries.
They have to commit now that the Ezreal ult actually stopped the backs, and he's actually pushing turret plates of his own. So Duckdom actually making a big play of his own to really force this commitment. It is going to be Live Sandbox just saying, well, okay, I guess, I mean, we will commit here, fine. And they actually do get the rest of these turret plates, so it actually ends up being totally fine for them. But, you know, no hesitation there. Okay, gonna hit us with a True Shot Barrage. We'll just stay. That's fine. We have Rift Herald up on the top side, and it's obviously a better trade because they didn't even finish the bot turret as Duckdom went back and upgraded his tier.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's a little bit confusing to me. Yeah, he's gonna get his item. And perhaps he really wants it for this team fight. That's what I would imagine. His team is probably saying, okay, we gotta back. We gotta get these items because we have a big fight coming in here. And Peanut just gonna get taunted up. Big knockup coming from Kellen, but the two of them are just out on a life raft, and they're gonna be sunk right here. Double kill goes the way of Summit, who is 3-0 already in this game. And man, just like that, any hopes that Nongshim had might have just been snuffed out. I mean, they get the Infernal Drake, but not looking good outside of that.
Yeah. And Dokdom, I mean, he finishes his Muramana and... Or is it, which one's first? The Muramana and Monument. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I was, still in the Lily Edge cast. Always mix those two up. I'll never have to read it when I'm playing. Yeah, he finishes it, but like, what do you really gain from that spike there? It's not really a big spike. It's not finished, and for some extra Spellblade damage, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you can see how many times he hits skill shots if you just look at his stacks, because you know how many come through when he hits a champion, and I think he hit 1 Q in this team fight, and as otherwise look at where he is in this fight. There was just he bought the item to take this Drake fight instead of pushing more turret plates. So we're really like I am really laser focused on this back there instead of macro pushing it, but it didn't end up working out for them. Nongshim have a disjointed team fight on the Drake where it seems like they're half committing, and it just ends up being a disaster. And now they're so far behind.
Yeah. And there's just way too much pressure being put on these lanes from the side of Live Sandbox. They have the Zoe winning essentially in the mid lane. You know, it doesn't really show on the CS difference, but just the amount of control that Fate had over that lane was miles ahead of what Bay had. So he was just opening up so much priority. He was able to roam up to the top side. Again, Kroko was able to get the free Rift Herald. They were able to get that huge roam up into the top turret and totally take that down. And Dokdom didn't really answer in kind. You know, he wasn't really able to get that gold on the bottom turret because they wanted him to be ready for the Infernal Drake fight that they shouldn't have been fighting anyway. So
Yeah.
At the end of the day, definitely a really big lead here for the side of Live Sandbox. Yes, they miss out on that Infernal Drake, but they've got Eclipse done. 133 CS on the Jace. All of their lanes are farming really well. And they have total control of this map right now.
I mean, as you say, you can count your blessings where you can on that Infernal Drake for Nongshim, but in this lull state in the game, too, it just looks amazing for Live Sandbox. They're pushing top lane right now. There's just nothing that Rich can do. Like, where do you even go from here? I mean, you're just waiting 2 more minutes for the next Drake fight. Well, there's no macro objectives you could take. You're stacking your Monomoon on minions in the bot lane, and I mean that's where we're at. Like, Ezreal can be quite powerful in the late game, but remember, like, this is an extremely heavy poke comp that Live Sandbox are playing with here. Zoe starting to get pretty fed, and the mid turret is going to be the next focal point after this Drake fight, you have to imagine. And then things just get harder and harder for Nongshim after that.
All right, they're going to force that Arcane Shift, and they have Kroko down here as well. They're going to burn that Unbreakable Will from the Alistair as Flash comes in response. That teleport is about 17 years late. Not really going to help out there, as Rich, unfortunately, is very sad. I hope he's okay after that one.
Yeah.
But you know, he knows it's a little bit late. But again, it's a nice little bait of a fight coming out from Live Sandbox. I would say that was a pretty nice play from them. Even if they weren't trying to full-on commit, they're still able to get some summoners away from Nongshim. And take a look at this.
Summit's just he's walking down the red carpet in the top lane. Rolling it out. He's rolling it out like one little roll at a time and taking these a step forward. I'm gonna get this Gromp. Oh, unfortunate. Maybe not, actually. Rich is like, no. Nice leech. Yeah. I mean, again, you count your blessings where you can, I guess, if you're Nongshim at this point, but the Drake fight is going to happen in 25 seconds, and even if, I mean, you could actually argue for Sandbox that they don't even have to take this Drake fight. Like, they could just try to find objectives elsewhere, but because they're grouped up right now, and they can clear some vision, I think they absolutely do take this fight. Fate can get big value here. But even if they didn't want to, like, they wouldn't necessarily have to. But Nongshim is just simply going to give this one away.
And that's the right play here. I mean, you're not fighting. This is what I said in the beginning, right? Like, Live Sandbox, if they get 1-2 items and they get ahead, they are just a juggernaut of a poke comp. Like, you're just never going to be able to fight them. They can take the Drakes, they can siege your turrets incredibly well. There's nothing you can really do against the power of Fed, Zoe, and Jace. And not just that, you've got nicely farmed Graves and Jhin. So, you know, good luck with that. And I think Nongshim are just realizing, like, hey, I mean, we had to get ahead. We didn't.
But what do you get when you don't Drake fight here? Like, if you don't Drake fight, you don't get anything either, right? You know?
Well, you don't die, I guess.
You don't die, but, I mean, I feel like the situation here just becomes more and more dire as time goes on for Nongshim. Unless they can win a big team fight, which they can't do without forcing it on the Drake. Instead of just clearing waves, I feel like perhaps that was the time where they needed to be aggressive. Krako is, speaking of which, gonna step over the line.
Hey, this is a nice little play. Krako, though, is going to be able to get away. Effort saving his nice, beautifully. But there it is. Bey finally pops off with a massive scatter the weak. He gets 3 kills. And here comes Summit. He's angry. Gets the 1, but that is a pretty clean ace as extending very deep into the jungle there. Thank you, Omen, of course, for the sponsorship of the ace, but at the same time, man, they just used that one fell swoop, and all of a sudden, Nongshim have a chance.
Oh, you just gotta tap your forehead and say, don't have to force a fight on Drake. If they're just gonna give you the fight, they're just gonna hand it to you. Krako goes extremely aggressive here onto Peanut. He doesn't know where Kellen is, and Kellen's able to come in on the side. It's a big true shot barrage as well onto Krako, and then bam! Triple scatter the weak is just gonna lock it all up. The teleport here is actually just the saddest part. Somebody is going to be able to trade Bey at least. But he's watching that teleport timer tick down. He's probably wishing he could cancel it. Not going to be the case.
Yeah.
Changed quite a while ago. But, I mean, this is just absolutely a way to throw your lead into the wastebasket by just being too aggressive. No objective to fight over there. And just getting too overzealous. So Nongshim finding their way into a team fight they didn't even necessarily need.
Well, I guess Kellen is dead.
Okay.
You know, so Jace is still unbelievably fed in this game, and I feel like Krako might have his blushes spared here in this game, because yes, bit of a mistake there, maybe a rookie mistake, if you will. Maybe feeling himself a little bit too much after the early game. But at the end of the day, it was a fantastic capitalization from the side of Nongshim, and you really got to shout out Bey after having what was a relatively weak series so far. Just popping off in a huge way in that team fight. The question is, you know, where do they stand now? I mean, you're still up against a Jace who is almost 3,000 gold ahead of your Gnar, so I mean, maybe a hard engage on a Jace is your only hope.
I think that is the case, or you have to be more aggressive, and again, it's tough when your best engage tool is the Alistair, which we did see worked flawlessly there when they stepped over the line. But what happens when Live Sandbox don't make huge mistakes? What happens when they have vision control over the Drake and you have to walk into them and fight on their terms? That's the big question. That's where things become a lot harder, because when they deliver you a team fight on a silver platter that they didn't even need to take because they just stepped over the line, then sure, it looks easy. You see the Hex Flash over the wall, everything looks fancy for Kellen, but I don't know if this is going to work out in the next few team fights without something amazing happening with Kellen. I mean, how are you going to get a pick onto this Jace? Like you mentioned, I mean, maybe that's your goal, but how does it happen when Live Sandbox are not caught with their pants down in the next fight, which is going to happen in about 1 minute's time here around this Drake?
Yeah. You can see that Live Sandbox are trying to set up a siege of the mid turret. That would be a juicy objective to take before this fight and get you a lot more map control. Peanut doing a little dance here. He's having fun in this game. I suppose when you've been around for a long time, it's not all super serious.
He's got the
having a bit of fun.
The B emotes all the time. He loves to be silly in game as much as he can.
He and Rich, some good synergy on those. But
Knocked
on
out.
the side of, okay, well, it's a lot of damage. On the side of Nongshim, they do have some really nice wave clear. So even though Live Sandbox do have some great siege, it's not going to be as easy as just rolling up to a turret and popping some people with accelerated shock blasts. Like, Nongshim can kind of just clear waves and get out and not really have to deal with that siege. And let's see how this one's going to go. Peanut trying to get on top of Summit. They find him on the bottom side. And that's a nice amount of damage onto Krako as well. That Unbreakable Will in the backside doing some work as Bay. Oh, they may have overextended here as opening up is the Jhin. No more Unbreakable Will.
Summit.
And the siege turret that is Fate over the wall right now is huge. As finally that Alistair is going to go down. Summit looking for those accelerated shock blasts over the wall. And that was almost it for Nongshim. You know, they almost just had the damage to take out Summit, but at the end of the day, just not able to extend far enough and get the kills they needed.
And that's, I think, the idea there for Nongshim is dive in, take that flank angle. They're outnumbered here, Peanut and Kellen, versus the rest of this team as Zephyr dives in. You can see the True Shot Barrage is to try to give some of that extra damage so everybody can come in for the follow-through. But look at the flash from Root, just too well done, and then he's able to just say, okay, well, curtain call time. There's no way out of here now. If nobody dies on the side of Live Sandbox in this exchange, then they turn the fight around so easily. And someone even played pretty passively there on the left side of the pit. Might have even stolen a kill away otherwise. Well,
I love Jonas Strong, man. He's shown us all the important stuff. A dead Syndra on the ground as it looks like some damage done at the blue buff. As now Rich is just caught here. He is surviving for quite a while. There doesn't seem to be too much damage just yet, even though there are some Fed members up there. So they get that kill. Duckdom just very narrowly going to dodge that bubble. As now Live Sandbox look to continue to push their lead.
yeah, looking like they want to just crush forward here and push the rest of Nongshim back. There's just no way they could fight, unfortunately, without Rich. Bought some time with the Gore Drinker, as you mentioned, but there's no way to fight this anymore. We'll watch this again. This is actually Bay. Wait, did he get executed? No way.
Does he die to the blue buff? Oh, it's the wolves!
He actually dies to the Merc Wolf there. Okay. Wow.
Oh no!
Wow.
Not like this. Oh man.
Well, that shot we had of the Syndra body on the ground was actually not of a Syndra body, but probably of Bay's pride at the moment.
Yeah. Hasn't been the best look here in his first LCK series.
He certainly has choked a few times in high-pressure situations, including Kespa Cup, despite his team doing very well and they making it all the way to the finals. And a few of these close series, including their series against Live Sandbox, that best of 3, he certainly has been very up and down, very inconsistent, and when things don't go his way, you can see it on his face right here. There's some emotions running high and some small mistakes, some little bit of greed there. And does end up dying, getting executed is not something you see in LCK usually.
Yeah, and you know, he's shown that he has the potential, right? We all saw his crazy 3-man stun. I mean, that might even be the play of the game today, at the end of the day, to be honest. But, you know, consistency, that's something that we sometimes lack from some of the newer players that do make it into the pro scene. And I do think that he will have to work on that just a bit, as Rich here just going to hop out. Doesn't seem to be in too much trouble.
I mean, Rich looks like he's playing solo queue when he's off on the side like that. That's extremely risky. It's not like he's trying to draw aggro away so his team can get major objectives. I mean, they were able to get blue. And that's it, right? There's nothing else even on the map for Rich here, so he needs to be incredibly... honestly, a lot more careful than he is being at the moment. Because dying again just gives up the next objective. That's going to be the Soul going over to Live Sandbox. And right now, I feel like for Nongshim, they just have to figure out a way to get another pick in a team fight. And it feels like that's nigh impossible right now with the mid turret going down. And the reset now that Live Sandbox has. At least they have the potential to set up vision control here around the Drake. Bait way up there.
Looks like Peanut gonna learn from the last fight, though. He's not gonna chase him down that far. as you can see, the Jace, again, we took another look at the gold difference. It's almost 4,000 now at the 26-minute mark, and that's pretty much the difference between the teams. So we also saw that Duck Dom had about 1,000 gold on Root, so looking pretty good. Maybe he's going to be their chance to come back, because it seems like he scooped a lot of the gold from the last time around. That is a massive two-shot barrage, by the way. But huge damage coming down onto Rich, so both teams exchanging blows before the fight even gets going.
Yeah, but Liv Sandbox are going to get positional advantage here. Rich has to back. He does have teleport, so he can rejoin for this Drake fight in just a moment here after he heals up. He is re-engaging right now, but look at where the damage is going to come from Fate here as they do group around this pit. And Nongshim have to be quick. They have to be decisive here. They cannot play this slowly. And look at this kite back right now for Liv Sandbox in their range.
Look at base health.
Yeah.
That was one accelerated shock blast and a deadly flourish. That's it. And I mean, he's one paddle star away from just being one-shotted by the team.
He's going to teleport back in, but that's again giving the numbers advantage over to Liv Sandbox, and they're just chipping away.
Yeah, we'll see what they can get done here. Some opening up coming out from the Jin. The two-shot barrage actually misses there on the backside, and Nongshim actually being given a lot of respect as they just come in and take it down. They're going to look to burst down the Jin, and they will be able to, in fact. So a nice little pick there. Now Effort going to be totally caught on the backside. Peanut incredibly tanky, and actually fighting front to back here is Liv Sandbox. Just the scraps being picked off the ground one by one, and now Nongshim have made their way back in the game.
Yeah, and you could see how the composition of Liv Sandbox falls apart like a house of cards, one by one, like dominoes almost, once the first pick comes through. And once Nongshim are in position to fight, once they're on top of Liv Sandbox, there's just no way out. This comp is completely reliant on its poke, on its range. So when the Drake is actually on, when they actually get on top of the Drake here, Liv Sandbox just have to show respect. I mean, the Drake itself blocks a lot of the damage. You can see Kellen goes low, they get the Drake, and then when the re-engage comes through here, it's actually incredibly done by Kellen. He makes the mega big play here as Effort turns around, tries to taunt everybody back. Does not work out, and you just can't win this fight anymore as Liv Sandbox without that extra range, that extra buffer. So a Root back into the game here. I keep doing that when the Root's playing.
Yeah.
Path back into the game, you know, a road back into the game.
I said at bay earlier, so
Yeah,
you're not alone in this one.
I wasn't going to say anything, you know, but in my case, I had to call myself out for this one.
The comments certainly been rich tonight. And, you know, I was just looking at the amount that this incredibly fed poke comp was ahead, and I was thinking, okay, I mean, looks like they may have just wrapped this one up, but Nongshim on the backs of Kellen.
Yeah.
And you very beautifully described it. I mean, with this poke comp, you can't really just sit on Dragon. You're relatively, you know, squishy yourself. You got to give room to the engage of Nongshim. And that just gave up a lot of their power and positioning in that one, and Kellen was able to find a beautiful opening there. So
Yeah.
it was you know, a really big team fight win for Nongshim, and they found a way to actually come back in this game.
And when you lose control of the map, it's a lot more difficult to team fight with Zoe. It's a lot more difficult to actually get that damage done consistently, especially when waves are pushing down your base. Like, you can't even poke anybody because the minions are in the way. You're struggling to find value, and Duck Dom just stole his way back into this game by collecting minions. He's got a huge gold lead, as you pointed out earlier. They just want to end the game right now.
Yeah, I don't know if they can. I mean, there's a nice amount of wave clear on the side of Liv Sandbox. Obviously, Baron is going to try to help them on the push for Nongshim, but we'll see what they can do here. You can see Effort, the one frontliner. He's going to get a taunt onto Peanut, but that's not enough. One turret is going to go down. Effort's getting chunked out here. Duck Dom is just going wild on the front line, and it looks like Nongshim just opened it up here, and they are going to take the win in a very close Game 3. 10-7 at 30 minutes, but Nongshim find a way back in with a massive engage.
Very, very close.
Really nice.
For the side of Nongshim there. And, I mean, it was a back and forth battle, and all that Nongshim needed was to take a fight on their terms, get on top of, just one time, get on top of this poke comp, this ranged composition that's so reliant on that Zoe damage. In all three games, that was Fate's game plan, and eventually they were able to take that single fight, that push for the win. Duckdom did an insane amount of damage with his true shot barrages throughout all of those fights, but finally at the end he started to really come online. He spent most of the early game just sitting in that bot lane, killing minions and trying to catch up in gold. Then he took a lead, then he started getting big value in the team fights, and in those moments, once the minions started coming through, Baron minions as well, like, you can't defend your base anymore. You have incredible poke, you have the wave clear, like you mentioned, it wasn't terrible on the side of Live Sandbox, but when it's Baron buffed, and if you try to go and clear it, you're just going to simply die. I mean, the only way to try to poke is to poke from the fountain. That's the only safe place you're poking, and unfortunately that means your Nexus is dead, so... Nongshim Red Forest, I don't think they're going to be happy with their performance tonight. They do take the 2-1 victory in the end, but the Gnar pick...
They look pretty happy.
I mean, they look happy. I think they look relieved, but I don't think the coaching staff, and I don't think the fans are going to be happy with a 2-1 victory here, and especially with how close that third game was. I mean, some of the players' emotions are a little bit different across the board there, but I don't think that with the dominant performance we saw from them in Kespa Cup, and where a lot of people are hoping this team is highest potential is, their highest peak is, they're going to be happy with this as potentially one of the weaker teams that they're going to face to try to get to maybe a top 4 this split. That they had such a close game, such a tight match, that on paper, especially we look at game 1, should not have been this way. And I think the real big blemish was the Rel game, where we just saw a complete flip for Kellen's performance there on the Rel. Did not have a good game, brought us to a third game where they felt a little bit tilted, it seems like, going into what was a longer game that they finally closed out. But yeah, I mean, relieved maybe at the moment, but looking back on it, I don't think they're going to be happy with taking that really close 2-1. I think they wanted to clean 2-0.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that one. Certainly there's a lot to work on from that series. I mean, even the game 3, the drafting choices as well. I mean, the Gnar, let me emphasize this, did negative work for the team. Like, he did nothing. It was basically all the Alistar finding engages, and at the same time, the Gnar kind of just got dumped on in lane. So,
yeah,
again, it kind of, makes you wonder. But we do have these highlights coming up here, guys, so make sure you do take a look at these as we are, going to take a look at how this game did go and how Nongshim actually came back in this one.
Yeah, well, I was already peeking into the highlights from the Korean side of things. We're gonna take a look at ours. Obviously, there is gonna be, there's this really awkward fight where they do get the Drake here, but they overextend, and you can see Duckdom. This is after he had just bought items and come back instead of pushing the bot. We talked about this a lot. Peanut and Kellen just kind of have to sacrifice themselves here to ensure that at least 2 members of Nongshim can get away there. They got a Drake, but that's all they got. And then this was one of those moments where you see the big overextension from Croco, and this is your favorite part, where Bay gets the triple scatter of the week here as they try to retreat. So perfect engage there from Bay, and a confident moment from a player who had some shaky engages, some very unfortunate times, especially that mid lane we saw last game. But he does come up clutch when it matters most.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, it was basically Kellen gets that engage onto the poke comp, or they're kind of out of luck in this game, and he does find the big engage that gets them back in the game. So props to Kellen. At the end of the day, I don't know if he gets player of the game based off of that one play, but man, was it a huge game-turning play.
Yeah.
As you can kind of see eventually in the gold difference as it totally got flipped around. But yeah, I mean, they were struggling. And props to Duckdom too for, just getting in there and doing some really efficient damage dealing. He did a lot more in this game than Root was really able to.
That honor you can give at the end of the game, as we do see the Nexus fall here. We jump into post game. That's like tilt proof, stayed cool or whatever. I feel like that's Duckdom's game here. He played extremely safely despite being down. Even we criticize him even for not pushing down that extra turret plate, but he went back to buy an item. He just always played safe, never really let the game snowball away from him. He was always able to be relevant in the fights. He had really good true shot barrages, and I voted for him. Actually, let's go ahead and say it for player of the game. I thought he played a really awesome, stable Ezreal. That was, of course, empowered by Kellen in the late game, because the Alistar is the only way you come back in this game. As we said multiple times, like that's your only engage tool against this really heavy poke comp. So it was a very close call for Nongshim. In fact, with the deficit they had, they almost had no rights to win that game, and they are definitely feeling the relief right now.
Yeah, relieved, happy, I would say, that they were able to finally find a way to make it back in that one. But guys, we do have the analyst desk ready to go. I'm going to hand it over to Ji-Sun for the translation. We'll see you in a bit.
농심 레드포스가
농심
드라마를
Redforce
만들어냈습니다.
was the one to
불리했던 초반에도
finish
불구하고
this
결국 승리를
entertaining
끌어냈는데요.
series, and they were able to turn the game around in order to pick up the first win of the split.
나르의 저주가 풀렸고
And they managed to
그리브즈
pick up the
주피가
first win for
나르보다
Nar
무조건 이기는 건
as
아니다.
well.
약간 이런 결과가 나왔습니다. 무엇보다 이제 벤픽에 있어서 가장 핵심적인
Looking at
흐름은
this
역시
draft,
바텀이었던 것 같아요.
The centerpiece was the
1페이지
bottom
때 아예
lane.
원딜을
They were
때려버리고
really
본인들이
obvious
원딜을
banning
빨리
out
가져왔는데
3
심지어
AD carry
농심
champions, and they
레드포스에서는
just
원딜이 더 짜릴 걸
picked
두려워하지
Jean
않고
in
저기서
the
원딜 안
very
뽑았거든요.
early
되게
phase of the
특이한
pick and ban,
흐름이잖아요.
which is really extraordinary.
미드가 이제 사일러스 나오긴 했지만 저희한테 상대가 안 되는 걸 느꼈고 그래서 좀 과감하게
So I think they were going really
신드라를 뽑고 나서 이제
bold.
원딜이 이제
They
내려갔지만
picked
물론
Syndra
이즈리얼
for the
때문에 게임이
mid
조금
lane.
느리게 간 것도 있고
So as a
불리했던 것도
result,
맞아요. 근데
because of
확실히
Ezreal, the
한번
game
그
got
기회를 잡으니까
quite
이즈리얼이
extended,
그
but they were able
자기가
to
성장한 그걸 해준 것
hit the
같습니다.
power
정말
spike
이거는
and turn the
한타로
table
역전한 게임이라고
around.
봐야
And
되는 게
we can say
제이스가
they
솔킬을 내고
were able to
영향력을
win this
끼치고
game
나에게
by
압박을 준
winning
것도
that
있지만
last
각
team
라인별로
fight
놓고 봤을 때
around the
결국에는
Dragon
리브
Pit.
샌드박스가
And looking at
대부분의
each
라인에서
lane,
본인들이 좀 편하게 주도권을 갖고
well, it
할 수
was
있었거든요.
truly
제이스가 나를 압박하고
easy for
미드에서
Leaf
어쨌든
Sandbox
조이가
players
좋고
to get the
바텀에서도
priority
진가
during the
가려고
laning
그러니까 이지아리
phase.
자체가 라인전이 워낙 애매하기
Ezreal
때문에.
and
근데
Alistar is not a
그걸
really strong
결국에는
lane
집중력
pick.
있는 한타로
However,
빵빵
they
터뜨리면서 역전했기 때문에
stay
진짜
composed and they were able
매운
to
한타를
exert their
맛볼 수 있는
power
그런 경기였던
during
것
team
같습니다.
fight of the late game.
말씀해주신 것처럼 초반 흐름은 사실 리브 샌드박스가 많이 가지고 가고
It is true,
있었는데요.
Leaf
경기
Sandbox
흐름을
was having the
바꿨던
control of the game
LPL식
from the
화끈한 플레이
beginning
보고 있습니다.
and till the mid game, but this
아니죠.
LPL-ish
LCK 를
fight
LPL
turned the game
따라가기
around.
때문에.
But Victory actually
그쵸,
will turn it
네.
마공점 알리로 열고
practice that this is truly an LCK style play.
생각을 했었거든요.
근데 여기서 신드라가
The scatter of weak was
보여줬어요.
going in perfectly.
신드라 존이 아닌가 이런
This is
느낌도
maybe the
들고.
perfect
잘
zone
컸던
for
제이스가
Syndra
그래서 사이드에서
in order
어떻게
to
보면
like land
지속적으로
multiple
압박만
stuns,
해주고
but
본인은
we can
거리지
say
않는
that
게
was the
안정적이고
dream
이상적인
team fight of the
운영이었겠지만
champion called
저기서
Syndra.
약간의 변수 덕분에 게임의 흐름이 그냥 한 번에
And with
확
that
넘어가게
point, they were
됐습니다.
able to gain
빨리
some
굴러갈 수 있었던
momentum.
거를 저기서 막고 또 역전해냈죠.
They could stop the snowball on the side of Leaf Sandbox, and they were able to start their own snowball.
샌드박스 입장에서는 뭐 대처를 제대로 못했다 저희가 이렇게 볼 수 있을 것 같고요.
네, 하지만 이 장면 이후에도 사실
And
업사이드
after
치라고
that,
했었는데요.
it was not
승기를
that
붙였던
easy for
마지막 용한타
Nongshim
장면
to
보겠습니다.
clearly accelerate their lead. However, we had this critical team fight that decided the
이게
results of
포킹이라는
the
건 저기
series.
좁은 지역에 있을 때 결국 적중이 올라가는 건데 여기서
Well,
용을
if you
기점으로
want to do a lot of
슬금슬금
damage
리브
based
샌드박스가
on
뒤로
your
물렸기
poking
때문에
ability, you have to
약간 깔때기
zone the
모양으로
opponents
본인들이 좁은
in
지역을
a
들어가고
narrow
넓은 지역에서
area.
안
But
맞는 구도가
well,
돼버려요.
actually,
그렇죠. 그리고 또
Nongshim
나르가
players
이제
were
또
spread
와중에
all around the map.
조이를 이제 때려준 것도
네.
And after they picked up the Drake,
포지션이 전환이 됐고 여기서
Kelly was really
원딜의
sharp
어떤
with the
안목이
decision.
있거든요. 심지어 요즘 원딜들이 약간
It was maybe we can call it a mistake from the AD carry because he was a little bit too extended. He walked actually to the set up Alistar, giving him the range to engage onto himself.
사실 이 상황에서도 오브젝트나 여러 가지 면에서 리브 샌드박스가 앞서고
But
있었기
before this point,
골드
Leaf
차이가 한 2,
Sandbox
3천
was
차이로 되게 많이
having
좁혀진
quite a bit of a
상황이었어요.
lead in
그래서
terms
좀더
of the
냉정하게
objectives,
본인들
but they were
조합 감점을 살려서
actually
나르의 분노를
the
화를 좀
both teams were at a
달래주고
very
포킹하라고
even
이런 걸 했어야
global
되는데
gold, so they
거꾸로
had to be
말하면
super
농심
cautious
레드포스가 더
engaging for that
집중력 있게
fight,
역전을
contesting
잘했다?
for the
이렇게
Drake.
볼수 있겠죠.
But
그렇습니다.
it
정말
maybe
치열했던
seemed like
전투 끝에
Leaf
농심
Sandbox
레드포스가
players were not
승리를
fully
가져갔는데요.
focused in that
오늘
late game.
POG 만나보겠습니다.
And the POG is going to be Kellen and Alistar.
사실 이렇게 뭔가
Gorilla being super proud as a support player or former support player, excuse me.
그걸 또 잡아주시고 POG를
Alistar always has a great role as an engaged pick. But
사실 이거는 제가 알리스타
we had two very significant team fights that kind of enabled Nongshim to find their opening, and Alistar was always the centerpiece of those fights.
그만큼 이제 서포터가 되게 이런 피어지를 받는 게 상대적으로
And
어려운
another highlight of the
경기고요.
final team fight.
아, 끝내기 한다.
As soon as he saw Jin in his engage range, he just jumped right in.
알스타한테 감점이 있어서 라이전 단계 뽑았던 건데
Galio also does have some strong points up against Alistar, but
물론 좋게
he was not
끝냈지만
able
상대가 이제
to
이즈리얼,
prove it
알스타,
at full
올라프 같은 이제
potential.
갈리오한테 좀 면역이 되어 있는 챔피언들이 많았고
Kelly
또 이제
managed to pick up
그
7 votes
리브
out of
샌드박스 같은
9.
경우에는 조합이 원래
Toktam
이제
also picked
갈리오가
up one as
박치기
our
하면서
caster
궁을 이제
mentioned.
덮어야
He
되는데
voted for
그러니까
Toktam, and
포킹 조합을
also
보면서 약간
we can
벙찐
see
느낌이 있는
some vote over to Syndra as well, and well deserved and well earned vote because we saw the picture perfect scatter of the week as well. But let's hear from the bottom deuce of the Nongsin Red Force.
와, 승리 축하드립니다.
Congratulations.
오늘은 반응이 좀 빠른데요?
I think we were having less delay than
네, 정말 기분
yesterday.
좋은 첫 승을 알렸습니다.
Congratulations
농심
on
레드포스가
getting the first
리브
win of the
샌드박스를
split.
상대로 승리를 했는데요. 소감 먼저
How are you
들어보겠습니다.
feeling, guys?
덕담 선수 한마디 해주시죠.
Toktam first.
우선 저희가 이제 첫 경기여가지고
This was our first
확실히 꼭
match,
이겨야겠다고
so
생각했는데
we were
이겨서
really
정말
looking
기분이
forward to this
좋아요.
victory. So I'm
정말
happy
기분
that we
좋으실
made it
것 같은데요.
happen.
켈린 선수의 그 소감도 들어보겠습니다.
What about you, Kellen?
게임이 좀 많이
The
힘들었는데
game was definitely
이기게
difficult,
또
and
그만큼
we
보상이 따르는 것
were
같습니다.
struggling a lot
좋습니다.
to win. But because we struggled too much, I think we are feeling a bigger reward.
2021 심상치 않습니다.
2021 looks really different for you guys.
덕담의 시즌인가?
And
덕담의
A lot of people are actually having all eyes on you,
오늘
Toktam,
밴을 엄청 많이
and you even
당했어요.
got target
덕담,
banned
본인이 봤을
in some of
때
the
본인의
games.
선수들 사이에서 평가하는 포인트 어느 정도길래 지금 이런
How
상황이
good
나오는
are you right now, especially in scrims? I mean, the players seem a little bit worried about you for being too scary. Well, I admit that my affiliates was super scary in game number 1, so I knew that they were gonna ban it out.
이게 이 정도까지 내가 견제를 받나?
But
라고 생각했는데
well, I was
기분
indeed
좋죠, 그런 거,
surprised that
선수
I'm getting this much of attention in
네,
this
좋죠.
team,
아,
and I'm flattered.
네, 네, 기분 좋으신 것 같은데 켈린 선수와는 처음으로 호흡을 맞춰보는 건데
This is
호흡
your
맞춰보니까
first split
어떠셨나요?
with Kellen. How's your
SK
teamwork with
기준으로
him,
이제는 또 둘이 한참
especially in the LCK?
그냥 너무
Well,
잘해요.
I mean, he's just so good.
그거밖에 표현할 방법이 없어요. 너무
No
잘해요.
other words. He's
그럼
just so
켈린은-
talented.
그렇죠.
켈린 선수에게도
켈린이 근데
여쭤봐요.
약간 표정이 얘왜
How's Toktam, Kellen?
재길이 형 진짜 너무 잘하고
He's super good. He's
진짜
super
너무
talented.
공연장.
Let's go, Toktam.
진심인 거 맞죠?
네.
네.
네, 이제 제가 이제 덕담 선수한테 물어볼 게 있는데
I have a question
제가 이제
over
피너
to you, Toktam. When I
선수가
was a
바위게를 양보하는
teammate
모습을 봤어요. 근데
with
원래 그런
Peanut, he
선수가
never
아니었던
kind
걸로
of let
기억하는데,
other teammates to take his
덕담 선수를
camp,
밀어주자는
but
콜이
today
나온 건가요? 아니면
he
내가
let you
이거
take the
인기
Scalded
뽑아야
Crab.
되니까
So was
달라고
that
한
his
건가요?
decision,
그
or
1세트
did you ask for it?
무한의 대강 뽑기 직전 타이밍.
It was right before you had your IE completed.
제가 달라 했어요. 이거 꼭
I
먹어야
asked
된다고.
for it. I told him I need
근데
this. I need to complete my item.
내주더라고요.
And he was like, okay.
그러니까 고릴라가 알기로는 피넛이 그런 거 원래 양보 잘 안 한다.
Because
뭐 이런
Gorilla
얘기를
knows that
물론
Peanut is not that kind of a guy.
원하지 않았기 때문에 그런 것도 있는데 좀
And also his teammates didn't really ask for it,
실제로
but
피넛
it was
선수의
really
호흡 이런 게
interesting to
어떤지
see
그게
him
궁금해서
being
하는
super
질문입니다.
nice and merciful.
왕호 형 근데
Peanut,
약간 주라면 다 주는
he always like
좀 성격인 것
down
같아요.
with whatever we ask for.
레드 달라면 레드 주고
When I ask for
블루 달라면
red, he's
블루 주고
okay.
다 주는 것
He's
같아요.
like, okay. And when I ask for blue buff, he's like, okay,
고릴라
you can take it.
전 사실 서포터라서
아,
뺏어먹을
네.
게 없어요.
아, 그렇죠.
Well, Gorilla was a support player, so he
그렇습니다.
doesn't really have
이
any
경기 얘기로 좀
experience of like
넘어가
taking
보자면
away the
켈린
jungle
선수가
camp.
레를 뽑아들었습니다.
So he doesn't really feel the same
어제
mood,
경기에서 좀
but
영감을
back to the
받으셨나요?
game.
계기가 궁금합니다.
So we want to ask you about the Rel game.
일단 연습 과정에서 되게 렐이 좋다고
Rel?
생각하고 약간
Performed really well during scrims.
연습 좀 하고
So we practiced
저도 좋다
Rel
판단해서
a lot,
한
and we thought Rel was a pretty decent
골
champion. So we
모았습니다.
tried it in game number 2.
칼킥이 나왔는데 뭐 그래도
Yeah, we saw
아직도
it
계속 연구
locked
가능성
in
그리고 가치는
in the
있는
very
그런
early
픽인
phase of the
거죠. 경기는 뭐
pick and
아쉬웠지만.
ban. Is it worth that much of a priority?
아쉽게
Yeah, I think.
그때 못해가지고
I mean, I
나라기는
definitely
좀
performed
조심스러웠던
bad
것
on that
같아요.
champion today.
바로 3경기 얘기로 빨리 넘어가 볼게요.
Let's
사실
move on to game
3경기에는
number
조금
3.
초반에는 불리한 흐름이었다가 한타에서
Well, you
정말
guys
극적인
were
대승을
pretty
많이
behind in the
거두셨잖아요.
early phase, but you
어떤
guys were
생각을 하고
able to
계셨는지
turn the table
궁금합니다.
sustainable around with teamfight victories.
왕호 형이 일단 싸움으로
Peanut
풀자고 해줬고,
said we have to kind of
라인 주도가
find a
없어가지고
breakthrough
싸움으로 이기자.
with
아,
team
리스타가
fights.
한타 죽으니까.
because we had
그런 얘기도
Alistar, a
나왔던
really
것
nice
같아요.
team fighter, so we were looking for
그
fights.
어떤 역전의 계기가 됐던 건 역시나 이제 켈린 선수가 마공점으로 그레이브즈를 물면서
Well, that
시작이
Hex
됐던
Flash
것 같은데
engage on
그
Graves
한타는
was the
처음부터 저기 좀
start
깊숙이
of
들어오는 거를
Nongshim's
노리고 있었던 건가요?
turnaround.
아니면 약간
Were you
우발적으로 이제
looking
급하게
for
발생했지만
that
본인들이
kind of
플레이를
specific
잘해준
kill in that position, or were you just lucky?
일단
Or
나르가
was that
오고
something
있었고,
impromptu?
그리고 수싸움이 먼저 우리가 이기니까.
네네.
네.
Because we saw Nar was on the way, so if we outnumbered the opponents, it's easier. It's an easier fight for me, us.
베이 선수가 엄청난 접근화에
And after your combo, Bay also had this montage highlight with his Kiwi combo, but he also got solo killed by the Wolf Camp.
좀더 경험 있는 선수들이 그럴 때 뭐 어떤
So
얘기를
what
해주는지
kind of advice did the experienced players give him after that kind of accident?
아 사실 그 죽은 얘기는 아무도 안 했어요. 그냥
No one actually mentioned it. We were like,
하고
oh,
이제 다음
okay.
거 이제
And
얘네가
we
뭐 할 수 있다라고
focus on
스토리
the
나왔거든요.
next
그래서
plays,
네네.
what the opponents can do
미드
next.
친구도 신경 안 썼을 것
And Bay
같아요.
wasn't paying too much attention to
잘할
it.
때는 막 칭찬을
I think he
많이
moved on.
해주고 그러나요?
Do you guys also praise him?
네, 이제 소리 한번 질러주죠.
Yeah, we could like we shout for him.
팀원들의 든든한 뒷받침이 있기 때문에 베이 선수가 또 성장을 할 수
네.
있는 게 아닌가 싶습니다. 자, 다음 경기는
Your
담원
next match will be
키아예요.
up against Tamon
보스
Kia.
선수와 대결이 기다리고
And
있습니다.
you'll be
덕담
facing
선수.
up against
보스
Ghost
선수에게
in the
한마디
bottom lane. Any
부탁드립니다.
message over to him?
잘해봅시다.
Let's have a good one.
그러면 켈린 선수의 베릴 선수를 상대하는 각오도
What about you, Kellen? Any message over to Beryl?
연습 많이 할 테니까
I'll practice
이겨보도록
hard.
하겠습니다.
We'll now try to take him down.
인터뷰를 보고 있을 것 같은데.
I'm pretty sure Tamon players are also watching this. So we'll be looking forward to a good one between Nongshim Red Force and Tamon Gaming.
LCK 전승이잖아요.
And you guys are also undefeated in the LCK, so wish you the best of luck here in the Spring Split. And this will be the end of the interview with Tokdam Kellen, the bottom duos of the Nongshim Red Force. I'm gonna pass it back to our casters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji-sun, as always, for the wonderful translation. Great to hear from the young bot lane of Nongshim Red Force. And yeah, you know, they deserve a lot of praise after games 1 and 3, I would say. Game 2, you know, maybe go back to the drawing board, but still pretty good.
Yeah, game 2 was definitely the big blemish of the 3-game series. Obviously, there were a lot of rough times in game 3 as well, but that rail game definitely going to be echoing, I think, through a lot of scrims and draft discussions over the next few days before their next match against One Kia.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, we do have the next match coming up. It is going to be DRX up against Afrika. So don't go anywhere. When we come back, we will have the second match of the night.